Elena had never been the type to obsess over material things, but her engagement ring was different. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of love, a promise, a future. When Jake had proposed, kneeling in the candlelit restaurant where they had shared their first date, she had been overwhelmed with emotion. The ring he slipped onto her finger had been perfect. A delicate white gold band with a single brilliant diamond. It wasn't the biggest or the most extravagant, but it was exactly what she had wanted. She had admired it countless times since that night, turning it under the light and marveling at how something so small could hold so much meaning. But now, staring at the empty space in her jewelry box where the ring should have been, her heart pounded with a sickening realization. It was gone. She tore through the small velvet-lined compartment, running her fingers over its edges, as if the ring could somehow be hiding in an impossible crease. Then she checked the other sections, even though she knew she hadn't moved it. Her bracelets, earrings, and necklaces were all in place. Only the engagement ring was missing. Panic surged through her, followed by a desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, she had put it somewhere else and forgotten. She turned to her dresser, yanking open every drawer, rummaging through sweaters and scarves, pushing aside makeup palettes and old receipts. Nothing. She moved to the nightstand, checking between books, inside the small dish where she sometimes placed her earrings before bed. Empty. She even got down on her hands and knees, checking under the bed, between the floorboards, inside her shoes. The harder she searched, the more frantic she became. Her mind raced. Had she worn it out and lost it? No. She never took it outside unless it was on her finger, and she had been careful, always keeping it in its designated place when she wasn't wearing it. Had it fallen somewhere? Impossible. She had checked every inch of her bedroom. And then, a chilling thought struck her. Lily. Her younger sister had always been difficult. Growing up, Elena had learned that Lily thrived on attention, and when she didn't get it, she found ways to take it. She had a way of making herself the center of every situation, whether through dramatic outbursts or subtle manipulations. And while she wasn't outright cruel, she had always harbored a competitive streak toward Elena. When Elena got into her dream college, Lily complained that their parents had spent too much time celebrating. When Elena landed her first real job, Lily pouted about how she was still figuring out what to do with her life. And when Elena had announced her engagement to Jake, Lily had smiled. Too wide, too forced. She had hugged Elena and gushed about how happy she was for her. But there had been something in her eyes, something unreadable. Later that night, she had offhandedly mentioned how she couldn't believe Jake had chosen such a classic ring. I mean, it's nice, she had said, tilting her head in that way that made Elena feel like she was being examined. But I just thought you'd go for something more unique. You know, something that really stands out. Elena had brushed it off at the time, chalking it up to Lily's usual way of making every situation about her. But now, with the ring missing, she couldn't ignore the uneasy feeling in her gut. Swallowing hard, she grabbed her phone and walked out of her room. Lily's door was open, and she was lounging on her bed, scrolling through her phone. She looked up when Elena walked in, raising an eyebrow. "What's up?" Lily asked casually. Elena took a slow breath, trying to keep her voice steady. "Have you seen my engagement ring?" Lily blinked, her expression unreadable for a split second before she frowned. "No. Why?" "It's missing." A flicker of something, too fast to catch, passed over Lily's face before she sat up straighter. "Wait, what? Are you sure?" Elena crossed her arms. "I've checked everywhere. It was in my jewelry box and now it's gone." Lily scoffed. "And you think I took it?" "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." Lily swung her legs off the bed, standing up with exaggerated offense. "Wow, Elena. Really? You lose something and immediately assume I stole it?" Elena's pulse quickened. "I didn't lose it. Someone took it. And you're the only person who's been in my room recently." Lily let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "Oh my God. You sound insane. You probably misplaced it. And now you're blaming me because you can't keep track of your stuff." "I don't misplace things," Elena shot back. "And I know my own jewelry. The ring was there yesterday." Lily folded her arms. "Maybe Jake took it." Elena felt her jaw tighten. "Jake wouldn't do that." "Oh, but I would." Lily's voice rose. "Do you hear yourself? This is insane. Elena clenched her fists. She knew Lily was lying. She knew it in the way her sister's eyes darted slightly to the side, in the way she was overplaying her outrage. But without proof she had nothing. Before she could say another word, their mother's voice rang out from downstairs. What's going on? Elena turned to see their parents standing at the foot of the stairs, concern etched on their faces. Elena's accusing me of stealing her stupid ring, Lily declared, her voice dripping with indignation. Their mother's eyes widened. Elena, is that true? Elena swallowed, choosing her words carefully. I'm not accusing anyone. I can't find it. And I want to know if Lily has seen it. Their father frowned. Elena, you need to be careful with your accusations. You know your sister wouldn't do something like that. Elena let out a sharp breath. You don't even know what happened. Their mother placed a hand on her hip. And do you have any proof? Or are you just making wild accusations? Elena felt the anger rise in her chest, hot and suffocating. This was always how it went. Lily played the victim, and their parents rushed to her defense. It had been the same since childhood. Lily could do no wrong. And if Elena ever stood up for herself, she was overreacting. I'm not making things up, Elena said through clenched teeth. Their mother sighed. Sweetheart, you're stressed. The wedding planning, work, everything, it's a lot. You probably just misplaced it. We'll all help you look, okay? Lily, standing behind them, smirked. It was so quick, so fleeting that Elena might have thought she imagined it. But she knew what she saw. And it made her blood boil. She wanted to scream. To demand that they take her seriously. To make them understand that she wasn't being paranoid. But she knew it was useless. They had already made up their minds. Taking a deep breath, Elena forced herself to calm down. Fighting with them wouldn't help. Instead, she turned on her heel and walked away, heading back to her room. If no one was going to believe her, she would have to find proof herself. And she knew exactly where to start. Elena sat on the edge of her bed, gripping her phone so tightly that her knuckles turned white. The conversation with her parents still rang in her ears, the dismissive tone in their voices, the way they had immediately taken Lily's side. It was the same pattern she had endured her entire life, and now it was happening again. Except this time it wasn't about childhood squabbles or school drama. This was her engagement ring. This was something that truly mattered. And they refused to believe her. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her thoughts. She needed to think clearly. She needed to focus on what she could do, not on how unfair this all felt. Right now, she had no hard proof that Lily had taken the ring. All she had was a gut feeling, a strong, almost undeniable certainty. But that wasn't enough. Her parents had made it clear. Unless she had evidence, they weren't going to take her seriously. Fine. Then she would get evidence. She replayed the last few days in her mind, trying to pinpoint when the ring had disappeared. She knew for certain that she had seen it in her jewelry box yesterday morning. That meant it had gone missing sometime between then and today. And Lily was the only person who had been in her room during that time. Elena picked up her phone and opened the family group chat. She scrolled through the messages, looking for any indication that Lily had gone somewhere suspicious. Maybe a pawn shop, maybe a jewelry store. But there was nothing. Just the usual random chatter, memes, and a text from their mom reminding them about Sunday dinner. Then another thought hit her. She had a habit of checking her bank app daily, just to keep an eye on her spending. If Lily had stolen the ring to sell it, she would have needed to go somewhere that dealt in jewelry. And if she had used Elena's car, something she had done plenty of times in the past, then there might be a clue in Elena's transaction history. Heart pounding, Elena opened her banking app and went straight to her recent transactions. Gas station, coffee shop, grocery store, nothing unusual. But then, her eyes landed on a small charge from a parking garage downtown. Her stomach twisted. She hadn't been downtown in over a week. Quickly, she pulled up Google Maps and searched the address of the parking garage. It was in a shopping district, one that had a few high-end jewelry stores. Her fingers shook as she tapped out a search for those stores, looking for their locations in relation to the garage. Sure enough, one of them was only a short walk away. A jeweler that specialized in engagement rings. A lump formed in her throat. Lily had stolen the ring, and she had taken it to a jeweler. Elena felt a surge of both vindication and fury. But she knew she had to be careful. If she confronted Lily now, she would just deny everything. She always did. And their parents would still take her side. No. This time Elena needed undeniable proof. She grabbed her purse and keys, barely stopping to put on her coat before she rushed out the door. It was a short drive downtown, but every minute felt like an eternity. Her mind raced with possibilities. What if Lily had already sold the ring? What if the jeweler had no idea what she was talking about? When she finally pulled into the parking garage, the same one from the transaction, she felt her pulse quicken. She was right here. She was close. The jewelry store was sleek and modern, with large glass windows showcasing diamond rings, necklaces, and other expensive pieces. As she stepped inside, the soft chime of the doorbell signaled her arrival. A well-dressed man behind the counter looked up and smiled. "Good afternoon. How can I help you today?" Elena swallowed hard, forcing herself to stay calm. "Hi. This might be an odd question, but has anyone come in recently trying to sell or resize an engagement ring? A white gold band, single diamond?" The jeweler's smile faltered slightly, his brows drawing together. "May I ask why you're inquiring?" Elena took a deep breath. "Because I think my sister stole my engagement ring, and I think she brought it here." The man hesitated, then nodded slowly. "One moment, please." He disappeared into a back room, leaving Elena standing there with her heart pounding in her chest. After what felt like forever, he returned, holding a small ring box. Elena's breath caught. He set the box down and carefully opened it. There it was. Her ring. Her hands trembled as she reached for it, feeling the familiar cool metal against her fingertips. Relief flooded through her, but it was quickly replaced by a fresh wave of anger. "She came in this morning," the jeweler said cautiously. "She claimed the ring was hers and wanted it resized. But she couldn't provide proof of purchase, and something felt off. So I told her we'd need verification before doing any alterations." Elena exhaled sharply. Thank you. Thank you for not going through with it." He nodded. "I assume you have proof that it belongs to you?" "Yes," she said quickly. "My fiancé bought it here. His name is Jake Reynolds. He should be in your system." The jeweler checked his records, then gave her a confirming nod. "Yes, I see the purchase. That settles it then." Elena closed her eyes for a brief moment, letting the relief wash over her. She had her proof. She had her ring. And now, there was no denying what Lily had done. She looked up at the jeweler. "Would you be willing to tell my parents what happened? Because they don't believe me." He gave her a sympathetic smile. "Of course. Just give me a number to call." Elena handed over her mother's contact information, then watched as he dialed. Her mother answered almost immediately. "Hello? Miss Thompson? This is Daniel Harper from Harper Jewelers. I'm calling regarding an engagement ring that was brought in this morning." A pause. Then, "Oh yes. What about it?" "Well," the jeweler said carefully, "your daughter Lily attempted to have it resized, but she couldn't provide proof of ownership. After speaking with Elena just now, we confirmed that the ring actually belongs to her." Silence. Elena could practically hear her mother's brain scrambling to process the information. "I see," her mother finally said. "That's surprising." Elena clenched her jaw. "Surprising?" That was all she had to say. "I just wanted to make sure you were aware," the jeweler continued, his tone professional but firm. "I'll be returning the ring to its rightful owner." Another long pause. Then finally, "Thank you for calling." The line went dead. Elena let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The jeweler handed her the ring box with a kind smile. "Good luck." Elena nodded, gripping the box tightly. "Thank you. For everything." As she walked out of the store and back toward her car, she felt a strange mixture of triumph and exhaustion. She had won this battle, but the war wasn't over yet. Now she had to go home and face the consequences Lily could no longer escape. Elena gripped the steering wheel as she pulled into the driveway of her parents' house, her heart pounding in her chest. The engagement ring sat safely in its box on the passenger seat, a tangible piece of evidence that she had been right all along. But even with the proof in her hands, she knew this confrontation wouldn't be easy. Her family had a long history of shielding Lily from consequences, and Elena had no doubt that her sister would do everything in her power to twist the situation in her favor. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her emotions before stepping out of the car. As much as she wanted to storm inside and demand answers, she knew she needed to keep her composure. If she lost her temper, her parents would immediately side with Lily, as they always did. No, this time she had to be calm. Firm but calm. Pushing open the front door, she walked inside, her footsteps echoing through the quiet house. Her mother and father were sitting in the living room, their faces tense, as if they had been waiting for her. Lily was there too, curled up on the couch, her arms folded across her chest. She barely spared Elena a glance, instead focusing on a loose thread on her sleeve, as if none of this concerned her. Elena stepped forward, holding up the small ring box. So she said, her voice steady, I just got back from Harper Jewelers. Her mother shifted uncomfortably. Elena didn't let her finish. She flipped open the box, revealing the engagement ring inside. They had my ring, she said, her eyes locked on Lily. Because Lily took it there. Lily let out an exaggerated sigh, rolling her eyes. Oh my God, Elena, are you seriously still on this? Elena snapped the box shut. Yes. Because you stole my engagement ring, and tried to get it resized. And now I have proof. Her father frowned, his gaze flickering between Elena and Lily. Elena, I don't think. The jeweler called Mom, Elena interrupted. He told her everything. So don't you dare try to deny it. A flicker of something, nervousness, guilt, or maybe just annoyance, crossed Lily's face before she quickly masked it with an unimpressed smirk. Okay, fine. Yeah, I took it, she said, shrugging. But it's not that big of a deal. You got it back, didn't you? Elena felt a wave of anger crash over her. Not that big of a deal. You stole my engagement ring, Lily, she said, her voice shaking. That's a felony. Do you even understand that? Lily scoffed. Oh please. Like you'd actually call the cops on your own sister. Elena's hands clenched at her sides. I shouldn't have to. You should feel bad enough on your own to actually apologize. Lily rolled her eyes again, leaning back against the couch. You're being so dramatic. It's just a ring. Elena let out a sharp, humorless laugh. It's just a ring. The ring my fiancé proposed to me with? The ring that represents our future together? The ring that you stole and tried to alter like it was yours? Lily's smirk faltered for a brief second before she crossed her arms again. I was just messing with you, she muttered. I wasn't actually going to keep it. Elena let out a shaky breath, turning to her parents. And you too. What do you have to say about this? Her mother shifted again, rubbing her hands together. Elena, sweetheart, we understand that you're upset, but... Elena shook her head, anger burning in her chest. But what? Are you actually going to hold Lily accountable for once in her life? Her father sighed. She made a mistake. But we don't think it's worth destroying your relationship over. Elena let out a bitter laugh. Right. Of course. Because it's never worth destroying our relationship when Lily screws up. But when I stand up for myself, when I demand to be treated with respect, then suddenly I'm the problem. Her mother's expression softened. Elena, that's not fair. Elena stared at her. No, what's not fair is that you always let her get away with things like this. What's not fair is that you made me feel crazy when I knew the truth. What's not fair is that I had to go find proof because you wouldn't believe me over her lies. Silence filled the room. Lily shifted uncomfortably. Look, I said I was messing around. Can we just move on already? Elena turned on her so fast that Lily actually flinched. Move on. Move on. You stole from me, Lily. You betrayed me. Do you even feel bad? Lily's lips pressed into a thin line. I guess I shouldn't have done it, she said, her voice barely above a mumble. Elena felt something inside her break. That was the closest thing to an apology she was ever going to get from Lily. And it wasn't enough. She turned back to her parents. You know what? I'm done. Her mother's eyes widened. Elena, don't. No, Elena cut in, shaking her head. I'm done pretending that this family is ever going to change. I'm done letting you make excuses for her. I'm done being the reasonable one, while Lily gets to act like a spoiled child. Her father sighed. Elena, you don't mean that. Elena met his gaze, her voice firm. I do. She turned and walked toward the door. Her mother's voice was panicked now. Elena, please, let's talk about this. Elena didn't turn around. I think I've said everything I needed to. She stepped outside, slamming the door behind her. As she got into her car, her hands were still shaking, not from anger but from something deeper. A realization that this moment had been building for years. This wasn't just about the ring. This was about everything. Every time Lily had hurt her. Every time her parents had dismissed her. Every time she had been made to feel like she was asking for too much just by wanting to be treated fairly. She wasn't going to do it anymore. As she drove away, she felt a strange sense of freedom settle over her. It hurt, of course it hurt, but for the first time in her life she was choosing herself. And that was worth more than any ring. Elena didn't cry as she drove home. She thought she might, after all, she had just walked out on her family, possibly for good. But instead she felt a strange, hollow calm settle over her. It was as if her body had decided that she had shed enough tears over them. Over Lily, over years of being treated like an afterthought. Maybe she had nothing left to give. The engagement ring sat in its box on the passenger seat. A quiet reminder of what had started this entire mess. She glanced at it at a red light, the diamond catching the evening glow. This ring had meant everything to her. It symbolized the love she and Jake shared, the future they were building together. And for a brief, sickening moment, it had almost been taken from her. She gripped the wheel tighter. No, Lily hadn't won. Elena had her ring back. But more than that, she had her clarity. When she finally pulled into the driveway of her apartment complex, exhaustion hit her like a freight train. The adrenaline that had kept her going all afternoon was wearing off, leaving behind a deep, aching weariness. She barely had the energy to grab her things as she headed inside. As soon as she stepped through the door, she was greeted by Jake's concerned face. He had been waiting for her, pacing the living room, his phone in hand. The moment he saw her, relief flooded his expression. "Elena," he breathed, striding over to her. "Are you okay? I was about to call you again." She nodded, though the lump in her throat made it hard to speak. "I'm fine," she managed. Then, without thinking, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him, pressing her face into his chest. He held her immediately, his arms warm and solid around her. "What happened?" he asked softly. She pulled back just enough to look up at him. "You were right," she whispered. "Lily stole the ring. She tried to get it resized at the jeweler's." Jake's jaw tensed. "I knew it," he said, his voice tight with barely contained anger. "I knew she took it." "What did your parents say?" Elena let out a bitter laugh. "They defended her. At first, they didn't even believe me. Even when I knew she was lying. Even when I had proof. They only started backtracking when the jeweler called Mom directly. But even then, it was just excuses. Like always." Jake exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "Unbelievable." Elena swallowed hard. "I told them I was done." The words felt heavy as she said them, final in a way that sent a chill down her spine. "I walked out. I don't think I'm going back." Jake cupped her face gently, his thumbs brushing over her cheekbones. "I'm proud of you," he said. "I know how hard that must have been." Her throat tightened. "It shouldn't have to be this hard," she admitted. "They should have believed me. They should have protected me. But they never have. And I can't keep pretending that's okay." Jake kissed her forehead, lingering for a moment. "You don't have to pretend anymore," he murmured. She closed her eyes, letting herself sink into his warmth. For so long, she had clung to the idea that one day her parents would change, that they would finally see her side, that they would treat her and Lily equally. But today had proven, once and for all, that they never would. And maybe it was time to let go. The next morning, Elena woke up feeling lighter than she had in years. The events of the previous day still lingered in her mind, but for the first time, she wasn't overwhelmed by frustration or sadness. Instead, there was an odd sense of peace. She spent the morning in quiet normalcy, making coffee, reading emails, going through her usual routine. She and Jake didn't talk about what had happened, but his presence was reassuring. He didn't need to say anything. He was just there, solid and unwavering. It wasn't until the afternoon that her phone started buzzing. She saw her mother's name on the screen and hesitated. She had expected a call eventually. She just hadn't decided yet whether she wanted to answer it. After a long moment, she sighed and picked up. "Hello, Elena." Her mother's voice was cautious, as if she were stepping over glass. "I've been trying to reach you." Elena sat down at the kitchen table. "I know." There was a pause. Look, I wanted to talk about what happened yesterday. Elena stared out the window. You mean when Lily stole my engagement ring? Or when you refused to believe me? Her mother sighed. Elena, you have to understand, we weren't trying to dismiss you. We just didn't want to assume the worst about Lily. Elena's grip on the phone tightened. Even when the worst is exactly what happened. Another pause. Then finally, I suppose we should have listened to you sooner. Elena let out a slow breath. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was as close as her mother would probably ever get. I'm not going to keep doing this, Elena said after a moment. I'm not going to keep putting myself in a position where I have to fight to be taken seriously. I don't care if Lily is your golden child. I won't be treated like I'm invisible anymore. Her mother's voice was softer now. We don't want to lose you, Elena. Elena closed her eyes. Then prove it. Silence stretched between them. And then her mother said, I'll talk to your father. It wasn't much, but it was something. Days passed, and Elena kept her distance from her family. Her parents texted her a few times, but she didn't rush to respond. She needed time. She needed space. Lily, on the other hand, didn't reach out at all. That was fine. Elena had no interest in hearing more excuses. One evening, she and Jake sat together on the couch, their hands intertwined. The engagement ring was back where it belonged on her finger, gleaming in the soft light. Do you regret it? Jake asked gently, walking away. Elena looked down at the ring, then back at him. No, she said honestly. I think it's the first time I've really stood up for myself. He squeezed her hand. I'm proud of you. She smiled, a real genuine smile. For so long, she had let herself believe that she had to earn her family's love. That if she just tried harder, if she just proved herself, they would finally treat her the way she deserved. But she didn't need to prove anything anymore. She had people in her life who loved her the way she deserved to be loved. Jake, her friends, the family she was choosing to build for herself. And that was more than enough.